evening, ladies and gentlemen. Here we go. Welcome. A beautiful looking crowd and a beautiful night. Those of you from out of town, welcome to Boca Raton, Florida. It's like this every day. And we welcome all of you from out of town to join us. Move here, it's a great time. So we'll start our program tonight. It's my pleasure to welcome you. And we have a great number of dignitaries here tonight. And I would like to start by honoring and welcoming our clerk, Joe Abruzzo, and his fiancée, Abby. Joe is also the vice chair of the Israel Bonds Government Industry and Financial Services Council. And from governments, our chairman of that council is Robert Sprague, the treasurer of Ohio. The Honorable Dave Ehrenberg, who's doing some work with the camera person. Oh, there he is right there. Got my entrance, Dave. Felicia Goldstein, who is the chief of staff of Representative Lois Frankel, and Teresa Breyer, who is the chief of staff of Representative Jared Moskowitz, are here this evening. Of course, we know that Congress is in session, so they could not be here. Also, our former Arkansas State Senator Jason Rapert, who is also a vice chair of the Government Industry and Financial Services Council, and Jason is heading up our Christian outreach, and we've already had some very interesting meetings, and looking forward to working with you on that, Jason. And of course, State Senator from Michigan, Lana Tice, our friend in Michigan. I don't see Matt Bernard, he didn't make it tonight, but David Silvers, our state rep, David Silvers is here. And is Elon Coffer here? I did not see you. Okay, sorry. And our sheriff was supposed to join us tonight, but some of you may have heard there was some type of a ruckus at the Palm Beach County Commission meeting today with some people shouting "See Kyle" and some terrible things. So he's been meeting with the FBI to take care of that. But I want to thank publicly his chief deputy, Tom Nadler, who's here in place of the sheriff. So thank you so much. Our other dignitaries, Michael Mickey Bergman is Vice President and Executive Director of the Richardson Center for Global Engagement. We'll hear from him in a little bit. Rabbi David Steinhardt from B'nai Torah Congregation. Rabbi Roni Keller from B'nai Israel also. And Rabbi Robert Silvers, Emeritus Rabbi from B'nai Israel Congregation, B'nai Israel as well. Rabbi Michael Simon from Temple Bet Kodesh. Reverend Paul O'Higgins. We feel like you're a rabbi. From the Reconciliation Outreach Ministry. He is the largest Christian holder of Israel bonds in the world. So thank you. Thank you, Reverend. Appreciate it. Of course, from Israel Bonds, our president and CEO, Danny Neve, and his beautiful wife, Silly. Stuart Karowitz, Vice President for National Sales. Andy Hutter, the International Chairman of the Board of Israel Bonds, and his lovely wife, Barbara. Sarah Lewis, our National Board Member, and her husband, Eric. Skip Nashvan, Palm Beach County General Chair. Norman Taplin, my partner in crime for this evening, Vice Chair of the Israel Bonds Government Industry Financial Services, and he's the head of our Palm Beach County Advisory Board. Effie Regev, my Assistant Director. Dan Berkowitz, we welcome him, the Director from Miami. And Zev Rubenstein, the Vice President for Business Development from Israel Bonds. You didn't think I'd forget you, did you? No. Okay, so we'll start that off. I'd like to invite Rabbi David Steinhardt from B'nai Torah Congregation to lead us in a prayer for Israel. And he will be followed by the noted singer, Rabbi Michael Simon from Temple of Kodesh, who will lead us in the anthems. Thanks, Mark.
Avinu Shabbat Sur Yisrael V'Goalo, Barechet Medinat Yisrael, Reshit Tzmichat Geulatenu. Hagein Aleha B'Yavrat Chasdecha, Ufros Aleha Sukat Shlomecha, Ushlach Orcha V'Yamitcha L'Rasheha, Sareha V'Yoatzeha, V'Tachmei Beitzat Tova Milfanecha, Chazek Et Yidei Miginei Eretz Kadshenu, V'Anchilein Eloheinu Yeshua, V'Ateret Nitzachon Te'atrein, V'Natata Shalom B'Aretz V'Simchat Olam Liyoshveha, V'Nomar Amen. Our Father in heaven, Rock and Redeemer of the people Israel, bless the state of Israel with its promise of redemption. Shield it with your love. Spread over it the shelter of your peace. Guide its leaders and advisors with your light and your truth. Help them with your good counsel. Strengthen the hands of those who defend our Holy Land. Deliver them, crown their efforts with triumph. Bless the land with peace and its inhabitants with lasting joy. And we all say, Amen.
Rabbi Simon. Please rise for the anthems and feel free to join in. We are in for a great celebration tonight. Thank you, Rabbi Steinhardt. Thank you, Rabbi Simon, for your roles in this. And let me just tell you that before we start, we are honoring Joe Guzzo here tonight because he was a great central role player in the success of the Palm Beach office. I'm proud to announce to all of you here tonight, and you won't be able to stop me from saying this forever, but from October 7th until the 15th of March, Palm Beach County, through our office, raised $1 billion in this area. Thank you all for making it possible. We appreciate it. I want to introduce and call up Norman Taplin, who I mentioned him before, but Norman is the CEO of MTG Consultants, president of Taplin Associates, an attorney who concentrates his practices in areas of regulatory, insurance, administration law, corporate and commercial law, and all aspects of the financial services industry. It's been my pleasure to work with Norman these past almost 34 years. He was the first layperson I ever met when I took over the office in 1991. and we've been running like crazy ever since. Norman.
Thank you, Mark. This is a culmination of a lot of the work that Mark and Stuart and Danny have done and directed since October 7th. So first of all, it's my honor to serve as the vice chair of the council, which met this week, and we have 150 members of the council, and we had, I think, 200 people on the phone. So it's a hot commodity. And it's my great pleasure to be sitting in the presence of Joe Bruzzo. Last December 18th, sitting right here when Robert Sprague and Jimmy Petronas and everyone else said what they're going to buy. Joe outmatched them all, and now that he's bought $700 million of his bonds for the county, when he walked in, I couldn't tell what you appreciate. When he walked in, I thought it was either JFK or a movie star, so he's fitting that role real well. So in any event, it's my pleasure tonight to introduce Stu Gierwitz, who really doesn't need an introduction. I met Stu back in 2011 when he assumed the position, and if he doesn't know everyone here, their social security number, their bank account number, and anything else, I'd be shocked. So, but we're very proud of him, and he's been a great partner to Mark and to me. And when he contacted me after I left my former role, after so many years with Mark, on October 10th, he said to me, "Do you think you guys could maybe raise about $10 million? I said, "Gee, Stu, that's going to be very hard to do, you know, with everything that's going on." So at that point, we called Robert Sprague, and he jumped immediately into the fray. He contacted many treasurers from around the country. There's some names that I can use and some I can't, so I'm not going to mention all of them, but that's a joke between me and Robert. He can talk about that. But in any event, as Mark said, we're now at the $1 billion mark, and Joe, I think you probably put us way ahead of that. So we appreciate that, appreciate everyone's good work. So basically, being involved in this organization since the early 90s, it was somewhat sleepy before Stu got into it in 2011. Over those years since 2011, it's become quite a bit more dynamic, including Danny's leadership, with governors, treasurers, insurance commissioners, congressmen, senators, industry leaders, and you name it. After the call on April 2nd that Treasurer Sprague chaired, it appeared that we had gone pretty far in what we could do with treasurers, although we're not stopping. And now I think Robert and Stu may talk about our next effort with regard to financial institutions and banks and whatnot. So anyway, some people say I'm a good salesman, but I'm nowhere nearly as good as Stu Gierwitz, so please help me welcome.
That's really hard to follow up, so I may just leave now because that was really good. Norm, thank you very, very much. And I think I can express mine and I know Danny's appreciation to you, of course, to Mark. But really, it goes back, I guess, over 12 years now. Norm was one of the first people that I met, along with his cohort, Eric Cerner. And we sat and we hatched and said, how do we start to grow here? What do we need to do? And when you heard the numbers just a few moments ago, I think you could say we're on our way, and maybe you could say we've been successful. So Norm, thank you for everything, and thank you for that kind introduction. I really like to thank everyone for being here tonight. We've had a lot of activities going on over the last few days, and thank you for so many of you being able to join us today. It's really an honor and a privilege to be standing in front of you, mainly because of all the support you've given us all the time, but especially since October 7th. I'm really proud to say that for the first quarter of 2024, we've raised in excess of $1.1 billion for this quarter. And since October 7th, over $2.5 billion. So it's an awful lot of money that just didn't come out of thin air. It came from everyone in this room, all the hard work that everyone's put in. So it's really very special. And to continue that momentum, as you've heard, we started a group called the Government, Industry, and Financial Services Leadership Council. And the idea was we need to get more investors. We need to get more business, more industry, and we need to grow because we can't always go back to the same people to buy our bonds. So last week we had our second call, and we had over 225 people on the Zoom, and that included other state treasurers, well-known CEOs and CFOs from around the country, and other major corporations and businesses. The event featured our council chair and Ohio State Treasurer Robert Spray. And Robert, really want to thank you as well. I mean, you stepped up immediately when we were putting this together, knowing the needs that we have, not just now, but going forward. And Robert said, I'll share this. I'll take the lead. And he's put a huge amount of effort in. Uh-oh. Time to go, man. And I just really want to thank you for the efforts that you put in, continue to put in, and he really has the state of Israel and Israel bonds in his heart, and can't thank you enough, as well as being a major investor in Israel bonds. So thank you, Robert. On that call that we had New York State Controller Tom DiNapoli, we had Texas Controller Glenn Hager, and very interestingly enough, because people want to hear about the economy in Israel since the war, we had Yali Rothenberg, Israel's Accountant General, the top economic person in the Ministry of Finance. It was wonderful to hear from all of our speakers the important why they invest in Israel bonds. But it was even more important for them to hear from Yali and brief us how Israel's economy is doing. And I can tell you, he said the economy since the war started is now rebounding briskly, and how positive and how strong the future looks. So I can tell you that Israel's in good hands and will continue to grow and will rebound even stronger than it was before. And so great to hear that. And I think it's phenomenal news. I'm just going to go off my prepared remarks for just a moment. You know, I mentioned the numbers earlier. Okay. Maybe it's about what I'm about to say, I don't know. But you know you're having success when people are trying to stop you from doing your job. And there are groups out there right now, anti-Israel groups. Danny and I have been traveling around the country. We have events that are taking place around the country. And I will tell you that there are demonstrators trying to intimidate our offices, trying to intimidate state, county, and local officials. And I will tell you, they will not be intimidated, and we will not be intimidated. And I just want to tell you that people know the truth and are committed and they're standing with Israel. And I will tell you they show courage and conviction every single day. One of those people that shows courage and conviction and won't be intimidated is this gentleman right down here, Joe Russo. And I have to tell you that I know Joe was saying to himself, this is something that was important for me to do, and I don't need all the accolades. But let me say this to you. There are people that would get intimidated. There were people that would demonstrate in front of his office and say, I don't want to buy any more bonds. And you know what? The more they demonstrated, the more they tried to intimidate him, the more bonds he wanted to buy to show them that we can't be intimidated and this is for Israel. And that's what I think is important for people to know. So I would ask, if I may, and I know you're going to hear this all night, but I think he deserves a tremendous round of applause, a standing ovation. Sorry, but I just had to do it. Israel's going to need more money. They told us they'll need more money. We need money coming from business. We need money from corporations. And we need more money from you. So I'd ask everyone in the audience today to consider making an investment, talking to your friends, looking at your companies, reaching out your friends and colleagues. Because you know what? Israel will need the money today, they're going to need the money tomorrow, and they're going to need it in the future. I think we all know why and how. and we need everyone to step up. So I can tell you, you're going to get a great rate of interest. You're going to diversify your portfolio. You're going to support a great friend and ally, and that's, I would say, as an investment goes, that's quite a return on your investment. Because if we don't do it now, when? So I ask you to do it at this point, and thank you. It is now my great pleasure to introduce our next speaker. Israel Bond's president and CEO, and my cohort, Danny Nevada. Danny comes to Israel Bonds with experience holding positions in government, business, and in the financial sector. In government, he served in prestigious positions such as Israel's Minister of Health and Cabinet Secretary. Danny then moved into the business sector and became the active chairman of the board of Cloud Insurance and Finance, one of the largest companies in Israel, as well as being an entrepreneur in the healthcare field and really setting the example of people in Israel. It is now my great privilege to introduce my dear friend and colleague and my boss, Danny Nevada. Danny, thank you.
Good evening, Erev Tov. It's a great honor and pleasure for me to be here again. I would like first of all to welcome our chairman of the board, my dear friend Dr. Andy Hatter and Barbara, our board members Shira Lewis and Eric, and the rest of Israel Bond staff, and I will get to you guys later. And it's a special privilege for Tzili and I to be here again and again. And I can tell you, Joe, that it's mainly because of you. When I saw what you have decided recently, to increase your investment in our portfolio, I told Andy that maybe we should start considering moving our headquarters from New York to Palm Beach. And I heard that there are some good news, and as we say, I have to wish you Mazel Tov to you and Sasha.
That's Dave. Abigail.
Abigail, sorry. Mark? Right. So I would like to wish you Mazel Tov, and I can tell you that if you want to make this ceremony tonight, we have enough rabbis here and even a reverend, so we can celebrate together.
As clerk of the court, I could sign a piece of paper and it would be official.
Sure. And also, it's a great pleasure to have with us tonight my dear friend, the treasurer of Ohio, Robert Sprague. Robert, everything that you have done so far is so highly appreciated by the people of Israel, and the fact that you took upon yourself to chair that council and to make some more time for that is really highly important for the state of Israel, and thank you for everything that you have done for the state of Israel and Israel Bonds. And it's a great pleasure to have some senators here with us today, and the former Congressman Barry Goldwater with us tonight. Dear friends, so as I mentioned, I was here recently, and I was here on that event that took place indoors on December 17th. And I thought, what should I say today? I don't want to repeat the message that I delivered on that night, because most of you guys were here. And I think that the best thing for me is to try to give you some update of what happened since December 18th. The day after I was here, I took the plane and I went to Israel for the first time since October 7th. And following that, I had another trip to Israel together with our chairman of the board and Israel Bonds leadership mission for the second time. And I can tell you that I'm an Israeli, as you may be suspected listening to me. I can tell you that I found a different Israel. A different Israel from the kind of Israel that I know for so many years. Israel that has been fighting with valor. Israel that has paid such a heavy price to defend its right to exist as a Jewish state in the land of Israel. Israel that has lost since October 7th more than 600 of its best boys and girls serving on the IDF, on Israel Defense Forces. Israel that thousands of its people were injured. Some of them are going to remain disabled for the rest of their life. Not to speak about 133 hostages that are still being held by these vicious terrorists of Hamas. And although that terrible price, Israel's spirit, the Israelis' spirit that I found, is very strong and steadfast. The people of Israel, the Israelis, understand something that I guess all of you here understand and accept, that they have been fighting for all of us, not just for the future of Israel and their right to exist. They are fighting for humanity, for civilization, for the future of the free world, the United States of America and Israel. And speaking about the spirit of the Israeli people, when we had the second trip in Israel since October 7th, Andy and I and Israel Bond's leadership, we met a group of the survivors, people who were there on the kibbutzim on October 7th and survived. We met a young girl, 17 years old. Let's say, I will call her for tonight, Noam. And she told her story to us. For 28 hours, she was locked in her house shelter together with her younger brother, who was diagnosed with a ASD. So imagine that, for 28 hours. Surrounded by those terrorists. They had, explosives and shooting all around them. And I understood from the WhatsApp groups that, Hamas is all over, surrounding their house. They've started to smell the smoke of the burned houses all around them. Terrible. And it took them 28 hours before the soldiers rescued them from their house. And after we met them, the entire group, I spent some time one-on-one with her and her mother. And the mother started to cry. Not just because of what happened to them, but because of the uncertainty of what is going to happen to them. The uncertainty of what can they expect after they left the kibbutz and everything is destroyed and burned. And then that young girl, Noah, told her mother, "Mom, what do you mean you don't know what the future will bring to us and what we should do next? It's obvious. We are going back to the kibbutz." So you see the spirit of these young guys, young people, young Israelis. It's so encouraging. And the only way I could have addressed that kind of strong spirit is by telling her that we came to Israel as Israel Bond's delegation to tell her that our spirit, the Israeli people supporters around the world, the Jewish communities and all Israel supporters around the world, our spirit is also very strong and steadfast, and we are committed to continue this unconditional support for the state of Israel and its people. I would like to tell you what also happened, and you heard from Stu about our numbers. So on December 18, when we met here, we were already in the midst of our very important campaign for Israel. 2023 was over with unprecedented turnaround of Israel Bond sales from a company that sold around $1 billion a year to a company that sold in 2023 $2.7 billion of bonds of the state of Israel. $2.7 billion. And since then, as Stu has mentioned, $2.5 billion since October 7th. The Israeli economy support, the war efforts, the civilian and the military ones, and at the same time maintain its strength. And at the same time, it's very important to say that the Israeli economy resilience, if you take a look throughout the years, after different kind of security crisis that we faced, the Israeli resilience has been always very strong and fast. And I can tell you already that if you take a look at the parameters of the Israeli business sector, you can see that it's going back on track. And there are already very strong indications that the Israeli economy is growing again. And I'm so proud to say that all of you, all of us, and Israel Bonds supporters all around the world have been playing an important part in that, an important part in strengthening the Israeli economy and the Israeli people. And as Stu has mentioned, we can see more and more all over the country, anti-Israel, anti-Semites groups, BDS groups, making these protests against the state of Israel, Israel bonds, and you guys that you are, as investors in Israel bonds. And there is no better answer, as you said rightly, Stu, than telling them, our answer to you guys, the anti-Semite, the anti-Israel, the BDS guys, is to increase our support for the state of Israel. And our investor, and I would conclude with that, our investors understand very well. First of all, the institutional investors, Robert and Joe, as we know, have their own fiduciaries. So you have decided to go ahead with that investment in Israel bonds as part of that fiduciary, and understanding that adding Israel bonds to be part of your portfolio strengthen your fixed income, steady and strong return as part of your scope of investments for Ohio or for Palm Beach and other places. At the same time, it comes from the understanding that by supporting Israel bonds, you support the best ally of the United States of America, which is the state of Israel. So I would like to conclude by saying that we are going to continue these ties and ally between the United States and the state of Israel for the sake of the future of America and the state of Israel. Am Yisrael Chai.
And now, the chairman of the board of...
I would like to take this honor from you, Mark, I apologize. And I would like to introduce you, our chairman of the board, Dr. Andy Haller, my friend. Andy is not just the chairman of DCI, which is the American company, but also the International Board of Israel Bonds. We have an operation also in Canada, Europe, and Latin America. Andy is an orthopedic surgeon, but he's first and foremost, for so many years, such a great leader, such a great person who supports and active for the state of Israel for so many years. And we are lucky to have you, Andy, as our chairman of the board.
Thank you, everybody, for allowing me to address you tonight. Thank you to everyone who's here. It is really a labor of love, my work with Israel Bonds for over 20 years. I'm a semi-retired orthopedic surgeon. I do consulting work. One of the bad things is I was diagnosed with MS a few years ago, but I'm a half-full guy. So it's allowed me to retire and spend some time, and that has allowed me now to be able to put all my efforts into working for Israel Bonds, which is a legacy that I'm looking forward to. So we all have our issues to deal with. I'll take the hand I'm dealt, and I'm so honored to be here with everybody tonight. I come from New Jersey, but I do have a house here in Florida, and I spend as much time as I can. And I'm jealous of all the people down here. Joe, your example, and everybody else down here. I come from a state where we have one of the best lay leaders for Israel Bonds in the country. But that doesn't transmit to our elected officials. Chris Christie bought $10 million in bonds when he was the governor, and we haven't bought any since. So I appreciate everything that all of you guys are doing here. Hopefully some of that, Robert and your group will rub off on the state of New Jersey and we can get back on track. So thank all of you for being here. It's my honor. And I'd just like to echo something like Donnie said. I was on this trip a few weeks ago with Donnie, and I think the most important thing that we can do after going to Israel is coming back to tell the truth. And a couple of things really hit me when I was there. One, the Israeli people asked us how we were doing, because they hear about the anti-Semitism in the United States. And that really hit home, that they, despite everything that they're going through, they're asking us. And I was with Donnie when we talked to that young girl to hit home. We also went to the Nova Film Festival, the site where a terrible massacre occurred. We met with a police officer who was there to guard people and ended up saving dozens of lives, and the only thing he had in his hand was a pistol. An RPG missed his head by a few inches. His partner that day, a young female police officer, was killed in front of him. But he persevered and he saved dozens of people. And we watched, at the Nova site, they have pictures of everybody that was murdered that day. And it hit home to my wife and I. We watched grandparents planting flowers at the site where their granddaughter's picture was. We saw a young soldier, couldn't have been more than 20 or 21, in his uniform, just walking around crying. And it really hit home. And we need to tell the story. These are people that have been affected in mental health, not just for the hostages, but for the entire state of Israel. And I'm very proud to be part of an organization that promotes pro-Israel things. We are not a political organization. It doesn't matter who the prime minister is. We promote connecting to the state of Israel. We are not a charity, we are an investment. So you are investing in the United States, best ally in the world. And I thank all of you for being here. I thank all of you for what you are doing, all of my lay leaders that are here, all of the people that are here that buy bonds, and all of the people from government that have shown us your support. We live in a very polarized society, unfortunately, and I thank all of you from the government that have the guts to stand up and say what's right. It doesn't have to be the right or the left, but we have to stand up for what's right together, and I thank all of you for doing that. So thank you very much, and I appreciate you letting me have a chance to speak to you tonight.
Norman. We're going to go out of order a little bit because we all know our great state attorney is not only our state attorney, but he is a TV star too. So we don't want to keep him away from MSNBC. So we're going to jump Robert Sprague for Dave, and Norman will introduce him.
In addition to having a rock star here tonight, we have a TV personality, and the person I'm about to introduce, although he's one of the best state's attorneys in Florida, he's in major demand to be on MSNBC and other channels, and I see him constantly and send him a little text message to say, "You look good today." As Mark said, due to his TV schedule, he has to leave early. Dave grew up in South Florida as I did, and he went to Harvard Law School. He couldn't get into Duke where Robert and I went. But they put in a good word. So, at an event we had for Adam Schiff here not too long ago, Adam called Dave the most exciting and dynamic leader in this area. As a state senator, he passed legislation allowing municipalities to buy bonds, but for which we wouldn't have the rock star here tonight. We were going on with $700 million. So appreciate that. So without further ado, so he can make his TV schedule, my dear friend Dave Harmon.
Hey, good evening, everyone. Oh my gosh, yeah, well thank you, Norm. By the way, I know some of you recoiled when you heard MSNBC if you're from the other side of the aisle, but I go on Megyn Kelly's show too, so that makes it a little better. Now I think I just pissed off both people, both sides. Okay, there we go. So, hey, I'm Dave Ehrenberg, honored to be here. This is a labor of love for me. And speaking of love, Danny, my fiance is Sasha, Joe's is Abigail, but unless there's something I don't know about,
What's going on, Dave?
I don't know what's going on.
It's my fault.
No, I love you, Danny. So, does anyone actually grow up wanting to be clerk or comptroller? How about if you grow up wanting to be clerk and comptroller? No? No. Now, I think most people don't even know what a comptroller is. But then I realized that Joe Abruzzo's office budget is 3 times the size of mine, with twice the employees. And Joe Abruzzo is living proof that elections matter, and that we pay all this attention to what goes on in Washington, D.C. But really what has more of an impact on our daily lives is what goes on in our city halls, goes on in our county government. And Joe Abruzzo is living proof of that. But there's also more proof. You know, there's a reason why you don't see those pro-Hamas demonstrators on the streets blocking traffic in our community, preventing you from going to the airport or getting in your face and harassing you. And the reason is because we have local government officials like Sheriff Bradshaw, Sheriff Knoll, the police chiefs, Boca Raton, and yeah, you have a state attorney who prosecutes and will not put up with any of that garbage. There's a technical term for it in the law. We don't put up with mishegas. That's a Latin term that you learn in law school. Thank you very much. So elections matter. And the fact that Palm Beach County, of any community in the country, is now the leader in investing in Israeli bonds to the tune of over $700 million tells you that it's because of a leader who made that decision. Yeah, we gave him the laws, but he had to make that decision. And people want to know, why is Joe Abruzzo, a guy with the last name of Abruzzo, why does he love the Jewish state so much? Well, he will point out that his grandfather was Jewish. That makes him a quarter Jewish. Not too shabby. Also, you know how it is, right? Jews and Italians are always living in the same neighborhoods. But it's more than that. It's because Joe Abruzzo knows right from wrong. It's because he believes that if you stand for human rights, if you stand for equality and democracy and freedom, that you must support Israel. It is so ironic that the people who claim to be social justice warriors are the ones marching for a theocratic, terrorist, genocidal hate group who slaughters innocents who look like them at a Nova Music Festival. As they march around in their yoga pants in the quad, they don't have a clue. And don't get me started about the weak politicians who know between right and wrong and sell out Israel because they're afraid of getting criticized by someone who has a blue check mark on Twitter. Without mentioning names tonight, I want to instead mention names of those who inspire us. I'd rather focus on those who have stepped up. That's what I take from all this. I am inspired by the Richie Torreses of the world, the John Fettermans of the world, and yes, the Joseph Abruzzos of the world. Isn't it nice to celebrate someone now who's on the right side of history without waiting for his actions to become part of history? We're celebrating him now in real time. And one thing that Joe knows that a lot of these politicians don't is that good policy is good politics. Being pro-Israel is also good politics. Some of these politicians in D.C. have forgotten about it. That's why the most popular politician in the swing state of Pennsylvania is John Fetterman. And the only one that comes close is a guy named Josh Shapiro, the governor of New York, Pennsylvania, who's also pro-Israel. It's why Adam Schiff won the Democratic primary overwhelmingly in California, beating Barbara Lee, an extremist anti-Israel congresswoman who got single digits. So take that, Elizabeth Warren. Bernie Sanders. Okay, I said I wouldn't mention names. I couldn't help myself. So let me conclude by saying this. Even if it wasn't good politics, Joseph Abruzzo would still do the right thing because he is a man of conscience. He's a man of principle, and he's a man of courage. And I am so proud to call him my close friend. And before, I know, Mark, I know, he points out, Mark has some things I want to add, but this is actually very true. This is, even though it's scripted, I want to say this from the heart. It's because it's before I present this award to Clerk Abruzzo, I'd like to call Skip Nash Band. Come on up, Skip. Come on up. Norm Taplin and Mark Rubin to come up here with me. Now, here's the thing. These three leaders were part of the group of Jewish leaders from across the state of Florida who came to Tallahassee in 2007 to lobby the Florida legislature to pass a law that would allow any municipality to invest in Israel bonds. That legislation passed unanimously in the House and the Senate, and I was a state senator at the time, and I co-sponsored the bill, and then I came back to Palm Beach County and worked with then County Commissioner Bert Aronson, and we drafted up the legislation that would allow a future clerk, who at the time was, I believe, a state representative, to take us to new levels. So from a humble beginning of $5 million invested in 2008, that portfolio has now grown to $700 million, the largest portfolio of Israel bonds owned by any entity in the world, So let us celebrate this great achievement as I call upon the leader of our community, my close friend, the spectacular clerk and comptroller, Joseph Abruzzo. Come on up. Now it's time for the standing ovation.
I have been having to follow Dave in a 1-2 punch for the past nearly 15 years. Never an easy thing to do.
All right, so we're going to present this award. This is the Israel Bonds Leadership Award, presented to Joseph Abruzzo, Palm Beach, Prime Minister Circle, April 9, 2024. You deserve every bit of this, Joseph.
Hold it up.
Hold it up.
Start over.
Tammy, if you would come up. Tammy Amsler from Israel Bonds. Tammy, please come. And I'll tell you why. I served in the United States Coast Guard for 8 years. And Tammy is also a Coast Guard veteran. We have a very small force in the Coast Guard. When I served, the entire Coast Guard was only 47,000 members, smaller than the NYPD. So I want you to join us.
All right.
We are all coming to the wedding.
Thank you so much. Please. Stu, you're right. I'm not one for awards and recognition. But before I begin, I first want to thank our rabbis, our spiritual leaders, as I always do. Rabbi Steinhardt, Rabbi Simon, it's been a pleasure to speak at your synagogues this past month. And as you know, as I've mentioned to both of you, you're the ones that get us through our darkest hours and lift our community and are truly the fabric of what we are here in Palm Beach County. Thank you for all the guidance you have provided our community. I'd be remiss in 20 motorcycles going around. right here, 6 months from now, exactly in this spot, I'm going to be getting married to my fiancée, Abigail, here at the Addison. And all that keeps going through my mind is the sirens and the trains and all the things we're figuring out now. Maybe when I say I do, if it doesn't sound like it, I did, okay? There's a train. But it's such a obviously significant spot and moment for me and Abby. So thank you for having it here and welcoming us as always. To Mark, Norm, Stuart, it's windy out here too. Danny, working with you all, since I took office in 2001, has been the pinnacle of our investment side. Your guidance and allowing us to make these investments, the returns for the Palm Beach County taxpayer, we could not do it if we weren't a team and really now a family doing the right things and doing the right things for Palm Beach County. I look forward for years to come working together. And I wanted to briefly add some context about our office and how we're here today. So, for the Palm Beach County residents, and for those who are actually out of state, you will hear most likely, and Treasurer Robert, you probably have a comptroller in your large counties and a clerk of court, and a separate person for being the recorder of the county, and a separate person for being the treasurer of the county, and a separate person for running the passport office, and a separate person for being the clerk to the board of the county commissioners. Here in Palm Beach County, our office is all of that, which is why we have such a large office and such a large budget. When the horrific events of October 7th happened, I got a call from Dave Amber. And Dave said, I have Mark Rubin on the other line. He would like to speak to you. I said, of course, patch him right through. And Mark said to me, Israel is about to issue a new issuance of Israeli bonds. No one has bought them yet. Do you want them? And I said, Mark, are you kidding me? How much do you have? I want it all. We have to do it. And I do want to add some additional context to this because I think it's important. And I'm going to keep the actions of our office and the actions by me and the political comments aside with a wall for a moment. When I took office in 2021, the county commission sets the cap of what we can buy for Israeli bonds in Palm Beach County. It was set at 5%. I went in front of the county commission and asked them to raise that threshold to 10%. And then recently I went in front of them and asked them to raise it to 15%. In 2021, when I went in front of the county commission, I explained to the board of the county commissioners that these are one of the most incredible, safe investments we can make. They were paying a significantly better return rate than our own U.S. treasuries, and they were just as safe. You could make an argument in some ways better. I said then that Israel was our greatest ally. I said it then, I say it now, and I will say it in the future. Thank God, unanimous approval, which allowed us to buy a significant portion of the Israeli bonds. When I went in front of them last month, with the support of all of you that I work with, they again unanimously approved that record 15% of our county portfolio, which is nearly $4.7 billion, can be invested in Israeli bonds, which capped us out at $700 million. I didn't do it to break a record to be the largest in the world. Happy we are, but I did it first and foremost, fiduciary responsibility to the taxpayers of Palm Beach County. Over a 2 to 3 year duration, these bonds will pay the taxpayers of Palm Beach County and our government over $84 million minimum at a return of 5.08%. Incredible. Our current U.S. treasuries are about 4.64. So to be able to make that investment and have these returns and support at the same time our greatest and I would say our most important ally by far in the world, Israel. It is a no-brainer, and I'm proud to stand here today and make that investment. This award, and I really do not like awards, this goes really to everybody, the Palm Beach County taxpayers, those in our office, and most importantly, Dave Ehrenberg, Mark, Danny, all of you that I work with. A lot has been done that is not just me. I have to mention some dear friends and family I have with me here tonight. Howard and Karen Weiss. They're the godparents to my son Joseph, 9 years old. And I had the privilege of working at the law firm of Weiss Handler for many years, and I learned a lot about Israel. I learned a lot, quite frankly, about synagogues that I would go to with Howard, and it's such a pleasure for you to be here. Adam Platzner will tell you he is my first Jewish brother. I would say yes in Florida. Adam is an incredible philanthropist and entrepreneur, and my first friend here in Florida. So it's a pleasure to have you with me today as well. I know Dave had to run, but what he said about Sheriff Bradshaw and protecting Palm Beach County. We are in a privileged county where we can go to Publix at night, we can go to Walgreens, we don't have to look over our shoulder. I was originally from Chicago. I've been here for 25 years. When I go back and visit family, I can tell you that is not the case. So everything that Sheriff Bradshaw and State Attorney Dave Ehrenberg have done and are doing really deserve another round of applause. One other aspect that I think is important for the Palm Beach County taxpayers to understand, diversification. Our national debt currently sits at $34.6 trillion, the largest debt in the history of the world. When I served on Finance and Tax in the Florida Senate as the Vice Chair, Ways and Means in the legislature, and I see Representative David Silvers here tonight, who's a near, dear friend. I went on record in 2016 complaining about our debt and complaining about inflation. When I took office in 2021, the very first meeting that I had with our in-house finance staff that makes all our investments, we do it in-house, was my concern about inflation. At that time, nobody really believed it was going to kick in the way that it did. That said, I ordered the divestment of a lot of our funds and let other funds mature to be sitting on a pile of cash or be able to move our investments into other products if I was right and inflation hit. One way it's unfortunate because I do not want to see inflation for the country. However, that's exactly what happened, as we know, and we were sitting there with the ability to go out and buy the Israeli bonds and other instruments that returned a record $174 million of investment income, which is the largest investment return income in the history of any county in Florida. When I took office, it was $27 million a year. So now we have an investment income of $174 million. With these bonds, we're going to be about $230 million of investment income for the taxpayers of Palm Beach County. I appreciate it. When I heard Rabbi Steinhardt last week, he mentioned that Israel was on the cusp of survival. This was about Israel survival. And it dawned on me before I came up to give my remarks that even during 9/11, America was never at the brink of survival. We know that this is about civilization, right and wrong. But it also dawned on me, and I was privileged to have some remarks at Rabbi Simon's synagogue. If terrorists came into this community, our communities, dug tunnels under our streets, came in via paratrooper, raped our women, murdered babies, and slaughtered many more, those terrorists that did this, or the nation that was harboring or controlled by those terrorists, that nation would look like the surface of the moon. No doubt. If we were put to the brink of survival, America would fight back with all the mighty force we had. There will be very little to no debate in this nation. We saw it what happened with 9/11. We saw it in Afghanistan and Iraq. And again, it was not even put to anywhere near the brink of where Israel is right now. So I say to those specifically that have been concerned about these investments, And Stu, you did bring up a great point. When we made the largest single day investment of $135 million, a week or two after, we had a very large protest down the street from our office on Okeechobee Boulevard, specifically for no other reason but targeting my office. Handing out pamphlets, bonds, Abruzzo, therefore. Well, and you said it already, Norm, I will never be deterred by those Islamic fundamentalists, those who wish Israel harm. We bought more and a lot more. This to me, and your support in being here, again, I really don't like the accolades, but it means a lot. It really means a lot, because I know we're doing the right thing. We hear a lot about how this is about civilization, and I do believe that. But I just wanted to thank you from the bottom of my heart. And I know Robert, the treasurer of Ohio, Robert Sprague, is going to come up and speak. And many will say, you know, he may be the next governor of the state of Ohio. And I will say this, Democrat, Republican. Robert, if I get a call from the National Democratic Committee saying we have a chance to pick off the governor's seats in Ohio, I'm going to tell them I serve with Robert Sprague. However, if he loses by 1 vote, my fiancée was a police officer in Ohio. She had to move here to Florida for me, and I helped the Democratic Party in that way, Robert. So that's aside, I just, one final thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. I will cherish this. It means the world to me and my family, and we're going to keep fighting for Israel, and we're going to keep fighting for Palm Beach County. Appreciate it.
I confused you because we put Dave ahead of Robert, so now you got Robert.
Okay, well, now I know Joe's a rock star. I've been involved in Israel Bonds for 35 years. That's one of the best speeches I've ever heard. So thank you very much. So at this time, I'm going to ask my colleague, Senator Jason Rayford from Arkansas, to join me for the next introduction. Senator Rayford and I and Robert Sprague met at the Israeli Embassy in March 2023, and I think the two of them have known each other a lot longer than I have known Treasurer Sprague, although we've become real good friends and have accomplished a lot, as you've heard. The Senator and Robert created, with Senator Tice, an entity called the National Association of Christian Lawmakers, which from day one has been supporting Israel, and in fact, at their first meeting in Dallas years ago, they had the Israeli flag up, and they continue to do it. And both of these guys are helping us quite a bit in getting churches and Christian religious organizations, universities to buy bonds. We're so proud of that. And so at this time, I'm going to call Senator Rayford, who is now, what's his position?
Vice Chair for Christian Outreach.
I'm going to call the Vice Chairman up, and please give a hearty welcome to Senator Jason Rayford.
Well, it's good to be here with all of you, and I just want to say congratulations and thank you to all of you that are doing the hard work of supporting Israel Bonds. And I must say that I wish we had the same level of commitment from people just like you in every county in this country, sir. So God bless you for what you're doing. You give him another round of applause. I do have the pleasure of introducing my friend Robert, and I do want to say thank you to Mark, to Norm, and to President Nove, and to Stuart for asking me to serve. I can't help but say to you that I'm going to be praying for your wedding, man. They can't do that. I'm telling you, but it's a beautiful venue. But I just say that, you know, this has been about my third time, I think, Norm, to be here with you. And I want to say that over time, when you get to know people and then circumstances deepen your relationship, it's beginning to feel a little bit more like home, honestly. And I want to say in the presence of those that are here that I'm honored to be able to help you. And we intend to do everything that we can to deepen and strengthen the support for the state of Israel from all of the Christian entities, organizations, and churches in this country. So we will do it. And parenthetically, many of you know that I carry this stone, Stuart. I picked it up on the streets of Jerusalem in 2013 when AIPAC invited me to come for my first trip to Israel. And it dawned on me sitting back there tonight, first of all, I never knew that God would prompt me to begin to carry this. I carry it all the time. And I speak about Israel, and it prompted, and I always have something to show them. And it dawned on me tonight that God had a plan that I didn't know. I didn't know that I would be a close friend of Norm Tamplin. I didn't know that I would end up being in a position to help you. And I didn't also know that God would allow me to help in passing the bill that allowed my state to invest in Israel bonds. That we took a stand against BDS. And in Arkansas, I'm happy to say, sir, that even if any entity that does business with our state, if they are boycotting Israel, Arkansas will not do business with them at all. So we did form the NACL, and this is to my introduction of Treasurer Sprague. We formed that, and God brought us together with Robert Sprague. And having met him, I now know that God is doing something in each of our lives, and I will guarantee you this. Each of you here, you're not here by accident. We're living in a time that God ordained for each of us to be here. And we all, if we'll listen closely, you'll hear him speaking to you for your role and what it's going to take to not only save this nation, but maybe even save the world for peace. And with that, Treasurer Sprague first entered public service in his hometown of Findlay, where he developed his commitment to strong fiscal stewardship as a city auditor and treasurer. And in these roles, he balanced the city's budgets and helped finance a massive recovery effort after historic floods in the 2008 economic recession. He later made his way to Columbus, serving the 83rd District as a member of the Ohio House of Representatives from 2011 until 2018. During his time in the private sector, he was a project lead at Ernst & Young and worked on several high-profile engagements with Fortune 500 companies before forming his own consulting firm. Treasurer Sprague graduated from Duke University with a bachelor's degree in mechanical engineering and later earned a master's degree in business administration with an emphasis in finance from the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. His commitment to public service is matched only by his love of family. He and his wife Amanda are the proud parents of 5 children and continue to live in Findlay. And I must say, Robert, as I stand here, I get an opportunity, maybe for the first time, to say, in honor of my grandmothers many times removed, my grandmother Flugie, Riddleman, and Rosenbaum, that you, sir, are a mensch. You're also a man of God and a great advocate and a wonderful statesman, and I hope the next governor of Ohio, Mr. Robert Sprague.
Well, thank you so much. My remarks are going to be very brief. You know, Senator, you mentioned a little bit about God. Let me just use a biblical reference. One of my favorite passages in Esther is when her uncle writes to Esther, "Who knows but that you may have been called for just such a time as this." And so many times, you know, we have these elections and these political events, whether you're running for state rep or state treasurer or county clerk, and we campaign on all these things. And let me tell you, none of that stuff actually matters because different things happen in the public policy sphere, and then you get to see people's character revealed as they try to deal with those new problems. And I just want to say, Joe, my friend, you have answered the call. Thank you. But I didn't come up here really to congratulate everyone tonight. I came up here tonight to challenge you. So the greatest hockey player to ever have played hockey, his name was Wayne Gretzky. Wayne Gretzky had a saying. He said, I was the greatest not because I skated to where the puck is, I was the greatest because I skated to where the puck was going to be. And for just a second, I want you to think about 1 year from now, where the state of Israel will be. And I hope that there'll be peace. I hope that the state of Israel will be rebuilding. I hope that the United States of America will still be standing strong with the state of Israel a year from now. And why I'm asking you to think forward is because as I look backward to last March, I accepted an invitation from Stuart to go to the National Israel Bonds function in Washington, D.C. in March. And I said, yes, okay, I'll go. Ohio's been investing in Israel bonds for 30 years. Think about this, Danny. 30 years ago, someone in your position and someone in Stewart's sought out Democrat treasurer in the state of Ohio. By the way, she eventually became the treasurer for the United States of America. And they developed a relationship with her, and she was the first one to buy Israel bonds. 30 years later, on October 7th, the Republican state treasurer was able to answer the call, along with Joe. Who's the other guy in Florida? Ronald Petronas and Hagar, the treasurer of Pennsylvania, to be able to take down that $100 million in a single day. So here's my point. My point is that here tonight, each and every one of you can probably write a check for Israel bonds. But each and every one of you who's sitting here tonight can impact the world and impact the future of our country and the future of the trajectory of Israel by simply doing this. Opening up your Rolodex tonight to introduce someone else to Israel bonds. Because there's those relationships a long, long time ago that thought forward as to what's going to happen next year and the year after that and decades more. So what we need to do, in my opinion, in the United States and for the state of Israel, is to begin to look forward and say what is next, what is coming down the road. Not just what investments are we making now, but what will those investments mean to us in a year and in 5 years and in 10 years. And the reality is that we need more people to be able to be invested in Israel bonds. And the last thing I'll say on this is that Israel bonds, the state of Israel is a great credit rating, right, Skip? Great credit rating. It is a great credit. The question that we need to ask so many people in government and in industry and in financial services is not, are you going to invest in Israel bonds? The question should be, given the credit rating that Israel bonds has and all the other investments that you've made at that same credit rating, why aren't you investing more in Israel bonds, our greatest ally? We stand with the state of Israel. Thank you.
Thank you, Governor. I mean, it's great. Our final speaker tonight, and we don't lose sight of the fact that there are hostages suffering under the control of Hamas, and we do not forget them, and we do not take their condition for granted. So I'd like this time to invite up the Vice President and Executive Director for the Richardson Center for Global Engagement to give us a brief situation report on the hostages currently under the terrible thumb of Hamas. Mickey Bergman.
All right. Thank you, Mark. And I have to say, this is my second time coming here, and as an outsider, you have a fantastic community, and it feels that way. And this is just my second time here, so I'm really happy to be here, even though my topic is kind of the heaviest on this. Unlike Danny, nobody can tell from my accent that I'm from Israel. I've been here, I've served in the IDF for about 6 years before falling in love with a girl and following her, chasing her all the way to the United States. Successful chase, she's my wife of 22 years. So I've been here for about 24 years, and 17 of those years, this is what I've been doing. I've been doing negotiations for hostages and political prisoners from around the world. 17 of those years, until last September, was with the late Governor Bill Richardson, who taught me most of what I know about this. We have worked in all countries: Russia, North Korea, Myanmar, Venezuela, Iran. From the state of Ohio, we worked to bring back Otto Warmbier from North Korea. From Detroit, we brought back Danny Fenster, a Jewish journalist that was stuck in Myanmar. And now I work for Steve Menzies, who you actually honored just the last time I was here, at the end of last year, with a new organization called Global Reach, which I work with him on, a non-for-profit that works on behalf of families at no cost to them. I was asked to give you a brief of where we are on the hostages situation in Gaza, and I will do it in 1 minute. I have to tell you, because today as we were talking and having these engagements, I want to bring you into something that is happening right now. There is an Israeli Princeton student that has been taken hostage over a year ago by a Shiite militia in Iraq. Her name is Elizabeth Tserkov. Katib Hezbollah, that militia, is an Iranian-backed militia in Iraq. They're the same ones that killed 3 American servicemen in January. They're the same ones who are sending the drones that hit Israel. They're also members of the coalition of the Prime Minister of Iraq and members of a coalition of militias that are employed by the government of Iraq, recipients of US military support. Okay, let that sink for a second. And on Monday, the Prime Minister of Iraq is going to be at the White House, meeting with the President. And all I was doing today was working because we can't get the President of the United States to use this meeting to demand that the Prime Minister of Iraq secure her release. Where Steve Menzies is about to spend some money for us to help us, to make sure to bring a big stink for that. I encourage you to pay attention to it. If you can speak about it, it's just completely outrageous. I had to get it off my chest, but this is kind of the work that is happening. Gaza. I have to say, October 7th happened. I've been working on this, as I said, for 17 years in all parts of the world. This struck me very differently. Emotionally, because I'm Israeli. These are my people. And while I need to completely disassociate my emotions in other cases, here I can't. I sat with survivors. I heard the stories. Some of them were recounted here. Horrific stories. What happened, the type of behavior on October 7th needs to be eradicated from human experience. It just has to happen. And yet we have hostages and we need to bring them home. And none of it is fair. And none of it is just. And we had a theory of return of how they can come home. We all know that if the IDF could have grabbed them and brought them back, they would have done that. They've tried. Managed to bring 3 of them alive. Unfortunately, some of them died in those efforts as well. And so that option was not the option to bring back the big numbers. The big numbers we knew would come back. The theory of return was through a deal that was the US, if the US leans on the countries that influence Hamas, Qatar, Egypt, Turkey, we can solicit a proposal. If that proposal is acceptable, then we can work with Israel on what it will need in order to actually hold that and bring people home. And it worked well at the beginning. When we were here last time, we were in the middle or just at the end of bringing back about 100 hostages out of that deal. I came here this morning at 5 a.m. flight from Washington because yesterday I had 11 hostage families at my house. They were there over the weekend, including Aviva Siegel, who was returned after 51 days of captivity, yet her husband, Keith, an American, is still being held. Extremely emotional. Where are we right now? We have three options of how we can advance on this. The first one is keep trying to get there, militarily speaking. But as we noticed, and as we saw, we can't. And the cost is really, really significant. The second option for us is to yell and scream, because what is offered to us in a deal, the deal to bring everybody home, is absolutely not fair. And it's not just. Those people were kidnapped from their homes. And I know there's distinctions between civilians and soldiers. Sorry, less distinction here for me, because those soldiers were also taken from their bases. They were not in an assault. They were not in the middle of an active engagement there. The price that is being required of Israel, being asked of Israel by Hamas, is not fair, and it's not just, it's infuriating. Absolutely infuriating. But if we only yell that and let our emotions drive us, we won't be able to bring them home. And that leads me to the third option, which I believe is being pursued right now as we're speaking, and that is kind of the middle ground, not a great thing at all, in which Israel is willing to make some compromises in withdrawal, some compromises in returning Palestinians back from Rafah to northern Gaza under certain conditions. Israel is willing to release prisoners, Palestinian prisoners, for this, and in return, Israel will get at least 40 of the hostages back home alive. It's not great. While Israel gets those hostages back home, it can decide whether it wants to continue with this and get to the higher price of things, but get more people back home, or whether it decides not to. The Prime Minister of Israel, after a lot of back and forth, because this is, I'm looking at it just as hostages, very emotional, just specific hostages. The Prime Minister of Israel needs to think strategically, needs to think about other long-term needs. But I think the conclusion of this was that there's nothing in that first stage, in the demands, that is existentially threatening the state of Israel. Therefore, the Prime Minister decided to authorize a more robust offer. God only knows if Hamas will agree to it or not. The indications are mixed with what we're hearing. And I'll finish with this. Here's what Israel's enemies don't understand. They think that when they extract a high price, it means that Israel is weak. They don't understand, as Jews, as Israelis, the higher price we pay, the stronger we are. Because Israel knows, Israel is strong enough to bite a bullet here, get our people back home, and then be patient, be consistent, and make sure that every single person involved in harming these Israelis will pay the price for it, even if it takes us years. How do I know it? Because Israel has done it before, and they'll do it again. And so the point is, even if it's going to really frustrate us, there's a saying in Hebrew, Al tiyeh tzodek, tiyeh chacham. Don't be just, be smart in this. And the smart thing for us right now, for Israel, is to do this deal, I believe, and that's what the Prime Minister is trying to do. Get the people that we can back home. We can't get them all back home. And then make sure, and that part I don't say publicly, except for here, of course, then the state of Israel should do what it needs to do in order to make sure that that never happens again, by making sure that there's justice to everybody that has been involved in this. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you, Mickey. We're just going to present the awards now to the people who have underwritten our event tonight. Nobody paid for their couvert pretty much, and so we want to thank them. But before I do, I want to welcome and thank Palm Beach County Commissioner Mac Bernard, who schlepped down here from the North County to be with us tonight. Thank you so much, Commissioner. We appreciate you, and we missed you earlier, but we're glad that you came. So I would like to, at this time, invite Alex Gonzalez from MTG Consultants, Christy Cole from Applied Underwriters, and Kurt Lyman from Alpha Beta Gamma, because these were our 3 underwriters for our event this evening, and I want to thank you very much for your generosity and your support. This is a copy of the first Israel Bond Award ever presented in 1951. It says, the State of Israel acknowledges with appreciation the services of those who participated in the first bond issue of Israel, the independence issue, helping to assure the future development of the common aspirations of the people of North America and the people of Israel for freedom and peace. And the first recipient was Albert Einstein. So you guys are in good company. That concludes our program for this evening. Thank you all for your support. Thank you for buying bonds. Thank you, Clerk Abruzzo and Governor Sprague, Treasurer Sprague. Thank you so much. Have a good evening. Thank you. There's still dessert. Forgive me. What meal would be complete without an notch at the end? It's back that way to my left. Thank you.